The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. 7 ancient species sat at the Great Table on Nexus Prime, the largest space station ever built. They made the laws. They decided who could travel between stars. They kept the peace, or at least they said they did. When humans first left their small blue planet called Earth, the Council watched them with little interest. Humans were weak. They lived short lives. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Their bodies broke easily and healed slowly. To the elder species, humans seemed like children playing in a universe they did not understand. Ambassador Daniel Hayes was 53 years old when he first walked into the council chambers. He had gray hair at his temples and lines on his face from years of hard work. Back on Earth, he had spent 30 years talking to difficult people and finding ways to make peace. But nothing had prepared him for this. The chamber was enormous. It could hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. Lights of every color floated in the air. Strange sounds and smells filled the space. Daniel kept his face calm, but his heart beat fast inside his chest. Beside him walked Commander Lisa Monroe. She was 40 years old, tall and strong, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was a soldier, not a diplomat, and she did not trust any of these aliens. Her job was to protect Daniel and the small human team that had come with them. Hi, Chancellor Vorthax sat at the center of the Great Table. He was an insectoid, meaning his body was like a giant insect. He stood 8 feet tall with a hard shell covering his form. His mouth had sharp parts that clicked together when he spoke. Humans, Vorthax said, and the clicks made the words sound like an insult. Your species is young. You have been in space for less than 200 years. We have been here for thousands. You will learn that there are rules in this galaxy. There are those who lead and those who follow. Daniel smiled politely. He had dealt with bullies before. We are happy to learn, he said, and we hope to share what we know as well. Some of the council members made sounds that might have been laughter. To them, humans had nothing worth sharing. What the council did not understand was simple. Humans had survived everything their planet had thrown at them. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Diseases that killed millions. Wars that destroyed cities and countries. They had no claws, so they made weapons. They had no armor, so they built shelters. They were weak alone, so they worked together. And there was one thing that every human culture shared, from the oldest tribes to the newest nations. They protected their children. Not just their own children, but all children. It was built into their bones, into their blood, into the deepest parts of their minds. Hurt a human child, and you would face something terrible. Something that did not stop until you were destroyed. The Zithrani did not know this. They were a reptilian species, cold-blooded in body and in spirit. Their scales were green and black. Their eyes were yellow with slit pupils. They had conquered 12 star systems through war and fear. Supreme Commander Krivix ruled the Zithrani military. He was old for his kind, nearly 200 years, and he had won more battles than he could count. He sat in his command center on the Zithrani homeworld and watched recordings of human colonies. Look at them, he said to his advisors. They let their young ones play in the open. No walls, no guards. No weapons to protect them. His advisor, a younger Zithrani named Sethrak, leaned forward to see the screen. They do seem careless, Supreme Commander. They are more than careless. They are stupid. Krivix showed his teeth in what passed for a smile among his people. Their attachment to their young makes them weak. If we take their children, they will do anything we say. They will surrender without a fight. This was not an unusual idea. Many species in the galaxy cared deeply for their offspring. The Council had an unwritten rule that even the most violent species followed. You did not attack the children of another species. It was considered wrong, Yes, but more than that, it was considered foolish. Most species would give up everything to save their young. Krivex believed humans would be the same. He thought they would fall to their knees and beg for their children back. He thought he could use those children to make humans serve the Zithrani forever. He was wrong. He was so terribly wrong. On Earth, life continued as normal. People went to work. Children went to school. Families had dinner together and watched the stars at night. They knew there were aliens out there, some friendly and some not. But Earth was far from the dangerous parts of the galaxy, or so they believed. President Kevin Marshall sat in his office and read reports about the Galactic Council. He was a calm man, slow to anger, careful in his decisions. He had 2 daughters of his own, ages 12 and 15. Sometimes he worried about what kind of galaxy they would grow up in. "Sir," his assistant said, entering the room. "Ambassador Hayes has sent his first report from Nexus Prime." Kevin took the document and read it slowly. Daniel wrote about the Council's arrogance, about the way they looked at humans like insects, about the Zithrani and their reputation for violence. "Keep an eye on those Zithrani," Kevin said quietly. "I do not like what I am reading about them." Far away, on a small colony world called New Hope, 3,000 humans lived peaceful lives. They grew food. They built homes. They raised their families under an orange sun in a sky full of strange stars. 400 children lived on New Hope. They went to school in a building at the center of the colony. They played in parks with grass that was almost like earth grass but slightly blue. They had no idea that somewhere in the galaxy, cold yellow eyes were watching them. Teacher Amy Garcia loved her job. She was 28 years old, with dark hair and a warm smile. Every morning, she welcomed her class of 8-year-olds and taught them about science, about math, about the history of Earth and humanity's journey to the stars. One day, she told them, "You might travel to other worlds. You might meet aliens and learn amazing things. The universe is full of wonders." The children listened with wide eyes. They trusted her. They trusted that the universe was a place of wonder, not of danger. They did not know that danger was coming. They did not know that their small school on their small colony was about to become the center of the greatest crisis in human history. And the Galactic Council, in all their ancient wisdom, had no idea what was about to happen. They thought they knew everything. They thought they understood all the species under their rule. They were about to learn that they understood nothing about humans. Nothing at all. The human fleet gathered near Jupiter, the largest planet in the Sol system. Commander Ryan Torres had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 20 years. He had seen many things in his career. He had never seen anything like this. Ships came from everywhere. Warships built for battle. Transport ships carrying soldiers. Medical ships ready to help the wounded. Colony ships that had been rebuilt to carry weapons. Even civilian freighters joined the armada, their crews volunteering to carry supplies into war. 800 warships at first. Then 900. Then over 1,000. Admiral Grace Chun watched the numbers grow from the bridge of her flagship, the carrier Resolute. She was 63 years old, and just 2 months ago she had been thinking about retirement. She had a house picked out on the coast of California. She had plans to fish and garden and watch the sunset every evening. Not anymore. "Admiral," her communications officer called out. "All ships have reported in. We are ready." Grace stood and looked at the view screen. 1,000 ships hung in the darkness, their lights like stars against the black. Each ship was filled with men and women ready to die for one reason: to bring home 47 children. She activated the fleet-wide channel. Her voice reached every ship, every soldier, every crew member. "This is Admiral Chun. Our mission is simple. We go to Zithrani space. We find our children. We bring them home. Anyone who tries to stop us will be destroyed. She paused, letting the silence stretch. The Zithrani think we are weak. They think we are young and foolish and easy to beat. They took our children because they believed we would surrender. They believed we would beg and plead and give them anything they wanted. Her voice grew hard. They were wrong. We do not beg. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate when our children are in danger. We fight. We win. Or we die trying. There is no other option. The fleet responded with a roar of voices. On every ship, crews shouted their anger and their determination. The sound echoed through the darkness of space. All ships, Grace commanded, jump to Zithrani space. Let them see what happens when you take human children. 1,000 ships jumped together. The flash of their faster-than-light engines was so bright it could be seen from Earth. The Zithrani had prepared their defenses. Supreme Commander Krivex was not a fool. He knew the humans would come. He had built a wall of protection around his territory that he believed no enemy could break. 12 battle stations, the size of small moons. 300 warships, the finest in the Zithrani fleet. Minefields spread across 3 star systems. Energy barriers that could stop any weapon. Known to galactic science, thought the humans hit this wall like a fist hitting glass. The first battle lasted 8 hours. The Zithrani fought well. Their ships were good, their crews were trained, and their weapons were deadly. They destroyed over 100 human ships in the first engagement. It did not matter. The human ships kept coming. When one ship fell, another took its place. When their shields failed, they used their damaged hulls as weapons, ramming them into enemy stations. Crews on dying ships did not abandon their posts. They kept firing until their last breath. Captain Marcus Webb commanded the destroyer Defiant. His ship took a direct hit from a Zithrani plasma cannon. The main engine was destroyed. Life support was failing. Half his crew was dead. "Sir," his first officer said, coughing through the smoke, "we should evacuate." Marcus looked at the view screen. A Zithrani battle station floated ahead of them, firing at other human ships. "No," he said. "All power to thrusters." "Ram that station." "Sir?" "You heard me. Everyone who can still move, get to the escape pods. The rest of us are going to make sure that station never fires again." The Defiant hit the station at full speed. The explosion took out the station's main weapon systems. 300 humans died on the Defiant that day. They did it without hesitation. Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle unfold. The Council received reports every hour. At first, they expected the humans to fail. The Zithrani were too strong. The defenses were too well built, but the humans did not fail. They kept pushing forward. They kept dying and fighting and dying some more. And slowly, impossibly, the Zithrani line began to break. Council member Thissa of the Meridian species sat in the observation chamber, her 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. She was a being of pure logic, her species famous for their cold calculation. "This does not make sense," she said. "They are losing ships at 3 times the rate of the Zithrani. Their tactics are inefficient. They are wasting resources and lives." Ambassador Vorath sat beside her, his ancient face sad. "You still do not understand. Logic does not apply here. Their young were taken. Nothing matters to them but getting those children back. But surely they must see that they are dying for nothing." "For nothing?" Vorath turned to look at her. "Thissa, they are dying for their children. To humans, there is no greater cause. They would burn the entire galaxy to ash if it meant saving one child. Do you understand now?" Thissa was silent for a long moment. "No," she admitted. "I do not understand. But I am beginning to fear." On the Zithrani homeworld, Supreme Commander Krivex watched his defenses crumble. The first defense line was gone. The second was falling. His fleet had lost half its ships, and the humans kept coming. His advisor Sethrak stood beside him, his scales pale with fear. Supreme Commander, we should negotiate. Perhaps if we return the children, they will stop. Krivex hissed with anger. If we return the children now, we show weakness. Other species will see it. They will attack us like the humans are attacking us. But if we do not return them, the humans will destroy us. Krivex turned his yellow eyes on his advisor. For the first time in 200 years, he felt something he had not felt since he was a young soldier facing his first battle. Fear. Prepare the final defense, he ordered. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have left. We will stop them at the homeworld. And if we cannot stop them? Krivex did not answer. He did not have an answer. The human fleet broke through the final defensive line on the 6th day of the war. They had lost 300 ships and over 50,000 lives. But they had destroyed everything the Zithrani put in front of them. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Resolute and looked at the tactical display. The Zithrani homeworld hung before them, blue and green and covered with clouds. In orbit around a small moon nearby, sensors detected the prison facility where the children were held. All ships, she said, her voice rough with exhaustion. The children are close. Final phase of the operation begins now. Task Force Alpha will engage the remaining Zithrani fleet. Task Force Beta will provide cover for the rescue team. Now a Zithrani ship reaches that prison moon. Do you understand? 1,000 voices answered. Yes, Admiral. Then let us finish this. Let us bring our children home. In the cold cell on the prison moon, Amy Garcia heard the distant thunder of explosions. The guards were running through the halls, shouting in their strange language. Something was happening. She gathered the children close. Do you hear that? She whispered. That is the sound of Earth coming for us. I told you they would come. I told you we would not be forgotten. 8-year-old Anna Santos looked up at her with tired, scared eyes. Are we going home, Miss Garcia? Amy held her tight. Yes, sweetheart. We are going home. The morning on New Hope started like every other morning. The orange sun rose over the hills. Birds that were not quite like earth birds sang in the trees. Parents kissed their children goodbye and sent them off to school. Amy Garcia stood at the door of her classroom and greeted each student by name. Good morning, Emma. Good morning, Lucas. Good morning, Sophie. She counted them as they entered. 22 children, all 8 years old, all excited for another day of learning. Principal Nathan Cooper walked through the halls, checking that everything was in order. He was a big man, 50 years old, with a kind face and a loud laugh. He had been a teacher for 20 years before becoming principal. He knew every child in the school by name. Beautiful day, he said to Amy as he passed her classroom. Perfect day, she agreed. Then the sky turned orange. Not the gentle orange of sunrise, but the angry orange of fire. A sound like thunder rolled across the colony, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Nathan ran to the window. His face went white. Ships, he said. Alien ships. They are attacking. The Zithrani fleet had come without warning. 12 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the colony. Their plasma cannons fired before anyone could react, destroying the communication towers first. New Hope was cut off from the rest of humanity in seconds. Nathan grabbed the emergency radio. All teachers, get the children to the bunkers. Now, this is not a drill. Move. Amy did not hesitate. Children, follow me. Stay together. Hold hands with the person next to you. The children were scared. Some were crying. But Amy kept her voice calm and steady. She led them out of the classroom and toward the bunker entrance at the back of the school. They did not make it. Zithrani, Soldiers dropped from the sky on personal flight packs. They were tall, covered in green and black scales, and they carried weapons that glowed with deadly light. They moved fast, faster than Amy had thought possible, and suddenly they were everywhere. "Stop," one of them commanded. His voice was cold and sharp. "Do not move or you will be killed." Amy pushed the children behind her. Her heart was beating so hard she thought it might burst. But she stood straight and looked the alien in his yellow eyes. "These are children," she said. "They have done nothing to you." The Zithrani soldier made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is exactly why we want them. Move aside, human." More soldiers arrived. They surrounded the school. Parents tried to reach their children, but force fields blocked their path. They could only watch as Zithrani troops entered the building and began taking the students. Nathan Cooper tried to fight. He threw himself at a soldier, trying to grab the alien's weapon. The Zithrani did not even slow down. He hit Nathan with the back of his gun, and the principal fell to the ground, blood running from his head. "Take all the young ones," the Zithrani commander ordered. "The Supreme Commander wants them alive and unharmed. They are no good to us dead." 47 children were loaded onto transport ships that day. They ranged in age from 5 to 12 years old. They cried for their parents. They screamed and struggled. But the Zithrani held them tight and carried them away. Amy Garcia was taken too. When the soldiers tried to separate her from her students, she fought so hard that it took 3 of them to hold her down. "I will not leave them," she shouted. "I will not leave my kids." The Zithrani commander looked at her with something like curiosity. "Very well. You can come. Perhaps you will keep them quiet." The transport ships rose into the sky and flew toward the waiting warships. Below them, the parents of New Hope watched their children disappear into the stars. Some fell to their knees. Some screamed until their voices broke. Some stood in silent shock, unable to believe what had just happened. The Zithrani fleet jumped away, leaving only destruction behind. It took 6 hours for the next human ship to reach New Hope. It was a cargo vessel called the Dawn Trader, and its captain, a woman named Patricia Wells, had heard the broken distress signal and come as fast as she could. She found a colony in ruins. Buildings burned. People wandered through the streets with empty eyes. And when she learned what had happened, when she heard that aliens had taken 47 human children, her hands shook with rage. "Send a message to Earth," she told her communications officer. "Priority 1. Tell them everything." The message reached Earth 12 hours later. It spread through the government, through the military, through the news networks. Within a day, every human in the galaxy knew what the Zithrani had done. President Kevin Marshall called an emergency meeting of every military and government leader on Earth. They gathered in the war room, a place that had not been used for decades. Their faces were grim. Some had tears in their eyes. "They took our children," Kevin said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of 1 billion angry humans. "They came to a peaceful colony. They killed our people. And they took 47 children." General Sandra Blake stood at attention. She was 60 years old, the highest-ranking officer in the Earth Defense Fleet. She had gray hair cut short and eyes like steel. "What are your orders, Mr. President?" Kevin looked around the room. He saw anger on every face. He saw pain. He saw the same thing he felt in his own heart. "Get them back," he said. "I do not care what it costs. I do not care what it takes. Get our children back. And make sure no one ever tries this again." Sandra nodded. "Understood, sir." The next day, President Marshall addressed not just Earth, but the entire galactic community. His speech was broadcast to every station, every ship, every colony in human space. And thanks to the news networks of other species, It was heard on hundreds of alien worlds as well. "To the Zithrani Dominion," Kevin said, looking directly into the camera. "You have taken our children. This was a mistake. You will not live long enough to regret it." He paused and let those words sink in. "To the Galactic Council, you will either stand with us or stand aside. There is no third option. We are coming for our children. Anyone who gets in our way will be destroyed." On Nexus Prime, the Council watched the broadcast in stunned silence. High Chancellor Vorthax turned to his advisors. "Surely they cannot be serious," he said. "The Zithrani are a major power. Humans have a fraction of their military strength." Ambassador Vorath of the Kalani species shook his ancient head. He was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, nearly 1,000 years old, and he had seen much in his long life. "They are completely serious," Vorath said. "I have studied humans. I tried to warn this council about them. Their young were taken. Nothing else matters to them now. Nothing at all. But they will lose," Vorthax protested. "They must know they will lose. They do not care. They will fight until they win or until every last one of them is dead. And I suspect, High Chancellor, that the Zithrani have made a terrible mistake. The humans will not lose. They will burn the galaxy down before they let those children come to harm." Vorthax made a clicking sound of disbelief. But deep in his ancient mind, a small voice whispered that the old Kalani might be right far away, on a prison moon orbiting the Zithrani homeworld. 47 children huddled together in a cold cell. Amy Garcia sat among them, holding as many as she could in her arms. "It will be okay," she told them over and over again. "Help is coming. Earth will come for us. I promise you, we will not be forgotten." She did not know if she believed her own words, but she said them anyway, because the children needed hope. And somewhere in the darkness of space, 800 human warships were preparing to prove her right. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison had 12 soldiers under his command. They were the best special operations team in the Earth Defense Fleet. Every single one of them had volunteered for this mission. Every single one of them was a parent. Jake was 35 years old. He had a daughter named Lily, age 6, back on Earth. When he heard about New Hope, he could not sleep for 3 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his own daughter in that prison cell. He saw her crying for her father. He saw her scared and alone. "Listen up," he told his team as their stealth shuttle approached the prison moon. "Primary objective is the children. We get them out alive. Nothing else matters. Secondary objective is anyone who hurt them. If you find a guard who harmed those kids, you have my permission to make him regret his life choices." His team nodded. Their faces were hard. Their eyes were cold. The battle raged in space above them. Human ships traded fire with the last of the Zithrani fleet. Explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. But the stealth shuttle was small and fast and quiet. It slipped through the chaos like a shadow. Sergeant Maria Ruiz sat next to Jake, checking her weapon for the 10th time. She was 28 years old and had a son waiting for her at home. "How are we getting in?" she asked. "Waste disposal port on the north side. It is the least guarded entrance. From there, we move through the maintenance tunnels to the cell block. And if we run into guards, then they die. Quietly if possible. Loudly if necessary." The shuttle touched down in a crater on the dark side of the moon. The team moved out in perfect silence. Their suits were designed to hide them from sensors. Their weapons were equipped with silencers. They were ghosts, and they were very, very angry ghosts. The waste disposal port was guarded by 2 Zithrani soldiers. They never saw Jake coming. He moved out of the shadows, his blade flashing, and both guards fell without making a sound. Entry point secure. Jake whispered into his radio. Moving in. The maintenance tunnels were dark and narrow. The team moved in single file, their steps silent on the metal floor. They passed machinery and pipes and generators. They passed Zethrani workers, who did not see them hiding in the shadows. It took them 45 minutes to reach the cell block. By then, the battle in space was reaching its peak. The station shook with distant impacts. Alarms wailed through the corridors. Guards ran past them, too focused on the attack to notice the humans in the darkness. Jake reached the main door of the cell block. It was locked with a heavy security panel. Tech Sergeant Collins, he whispered. Open it. Sergeant Paul Collins was the team's electronics expert. He was 40 years old and completely bald, and he could hack any system ever built. He worked on the panel for 3 minutes while the rest of the team watched the corridor. Got it, he said. The door slid open. Inside, there were 10 guards watching over the cells. They turned when they heard the door open. They reached for their weapons. They were too slow. Jake's team opened fire. The silenced weapons made soft sounds, like whispers. The guards fell one by one. In 5 seconds, it was over. Clear, Jake said. He ran to the cells, looking for the children. The first cell was empty. The second cell held adult prisoners, aliens from other species. The third cell had human adults, colonists from New Hope. And the fourth cell held the children. They were huddled together in the corner, scared and cold and crying. Amy Garcia stood in front of them, her arms spread wide, trying to protect them with her own body. Jake pulled off his helmet so she could see his face. Ma'am, he said, we are here to take you home. Amy stared at him. For a moment, she did not seem to believe what she was seeing. Then her knees gave out, and she sat down hard on the floor. You came, she whispered. You actually came. Earth does not leave its children behind. Ever. Jake turned to his team. Get these kids ready to move. We are leaving. The children were scared of the soldiers at first. They had seen too much, been through too much. But one by one, the team members removed their helmets. They showed their human faces. They spoke softly and gently. Sergeant Ruiz knelt down in front of a little boy who was crying. Hey there, she said. My name is Maria. I have a little boy just like you back home. What is your name? Lucas, the boy sniffled. Well, Lucas, I'm going to carry you out of here. Is that okay? I promise I will not let anything happen to you. Lucas nodded and reached for her. She picked him up and held him close. All across the cell, similar scenes played out. Each soldier took as many children as they could carry. Jake counted them as they moved out. 47 children. All alive. All scared, but alive. Miss Garcia, Jake said, can you walk? Amy was already on her feet. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. I can walk. I can run if I need to. Just get these kids out of here. Yes, ma'am. They moved back through the tunnels. The children were quiet now, clinging to the soldiers who carried them. They knew something important was happening. They knew they were being saved. They were almost at the exit when 8-year-old Emma Santos tugged on Jake's sleeve. She was riding on his back, her arms wrapped around his neck. Mr. Soldier? She asked quietly. Yes, sweetheart? Are you going to hurt the bad aliens? The ones who took us? Jake thought about what he had seen in that cell. He thought about the bruises on the children's arms. He thought about his own daughter, safe at home, and how he would feel if someone had taken her. Yes, he said. We absolutely are. They reached the shuttle without being caught. The pilot, Lieutenant Carol Adams, already had the engines running. Everyone on board, Jake ordered. Move, move, move. The children were loaded onto the shuttle first, then the adults, then the team. The door sealed behind them. The shuttle lifted off and shot toward the waiting fleet. Resolute, "This is Rescue Team Alpha," Jake reported. "Package secured. 47 children, all alive. We are coming home." On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Chun closed her eyes for a moment. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. "Copy that, Alpha. Well done." She opened her eyes and looked at the tactical display. The Zithrani fleet was in ruins. The homeworld lay defenseless before her. "All ships," she said. "The children are safe." A cheer rose from the fleet. On every ship, humans shouted and cried and hugged each other. Their children were coming home. Grace, let them have their moment. Then she spoke again. "The children are safe. Now make them pay. All ships, weapons free on military targets. Destroy every shipyard. Destroy every weapons factory. Destroy every military base. Leave nothing standing." The fleet moved. Over the next 12 hours, they took apart the Zithrani military piece by piece. They did not attack cities. They did not target civilians. But anything that could be used for war was burned. Supreme Commander Krivix was captured trying to flee the planet. He was brought before Admiral Chun in chains. "You will face trial," she told him. "Not for attacking us. Not for the soldiers you killed. You will face trial for what you did to those children. And I promise you, Commander, you will answer for every tear, every bruise, every nightmare you have caused." Krivix looked at her with his yellow eyes. For the first time in his long life, he had nothing to say. The shuttle carrying the children docked with the Resolute. Jake Morrison carried Emma Santos off the ship and handed her to the medical team waiting on the deck. "They are all alive," he reported. "Some are hurt. All are scared. But they are alive." Amy Garcia was the last to leave the shuttle. She stood on the deck of the carrier and looked around at the hundreds of faces watching her. Soldiers, officers, crew members. They were all crying. "Thank you," she said. Her voice cracked. "Thank you for coming." A young ensign stepped forward. "Ma'am," she said, "we would have burned the galaxy down to bring them back." Amy nodded. She understood now. She understood what it meant to be human. What it meant to protect the young. What it meant to never, ever give up. The children were going home. 6 months passed after the war with the Zithrani. The galaxy slowly returned to normal, but nothing was truly the same. Every species had seen what humans could do when their children were threatened. Every species remembered. The Galactic Council called an emergency session on Nexus Prime. It was the largest gathering in the history of the station. Over 500 species sent representatives. Every seat in the great chamber was filled. Every eye was fixed on the central podium. Ambassador Daniel Hayes walked into the chamber. He looked different from the last time he had stood here. There were more lines on his face, more gray in his hair. But there was something else too. A hardness in his eyes that had not been there before. Behind him walked Commander Lisa Monroe. She wore her dress uniform and carried herself like the warrior she was. She had led a company of soldiers during the war. She had seen things she would never forget. High Chancellor Vorthax sat at the great table, his mandibles clicking nervously. The other council members shifted in their seats. They remembered the last time they had spoken to the human ambassador. They remembered how they had looked down on him, treated him like a child playing at adult affairs. They did not look down on him now. "The council recognizes Ambassador Hayes of Earth," Vorthax announced. Daniel walked to the center of the chamber. He stood straight and tall, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the room. 12,000 years, he said. That is how long this council has ruled the galaxy. 12,000 years of laws and treaties and agreements. In all that time, you developed rules that everyone was supposed to follow. Unwritten rules. Understood by all. He paused and looked around at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. One of those rules was simple. Do not attack the children of another species. It was considered wrong. It was considered foolish. Everyone knew this rule. Everyone agreed with it. And yet the Zithrani broke it, and you did nothing. Silence filled the chamber. You watched. Daniel continued. You waited. You wanted to see what would happen. Perhaps you hoped the humans would surrender. Perhaps you hoped we would go away quietly. Perhaps you simply did not care. His voice grew harder. The children of New Hope spent 2 weeks in a Zithrani prison. 2 weeks of fear and pain and loneliness. 2 weeks wondering if anyone would come for them. And during those 2 weeks, this council did nothing. Not a single member spoke against what the Zithrani had done. Not a single ship was sent to help. Vorthak started to speak, but Daniel raised his hand. I am not finished. My government has sent me here with a proposal. We want to change how this galaxy works. We want to take that unwritten rule and write it down. We want to carve it into the foundation of galactic law, with clear punishments for anyone who breaks it. A murmur ran through the assembly. Council members looked at each other with uncertainty. What exactly are you proposing? Vorthax asked. A new law. The first law of the Galactic Council. It will state that the deliberate targeting of children of any species, for any reason, in any conflict, is forbidden. Violations will be met with a unified response from all member species. And who would enforce this law? Daniel smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Earth, the human fleet. We will be the enforcers. Any species that targets children, anywhere in the galaxy, will face us. Not sanctions. Not diplomatic condemnation. Our ships. Our soldiers. Our response. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted protests. Others called for order. Vorthax clicked his mandibles loudly to restore silence. You want humanity to be the galaxy's protectors of children? He asked, disbelief clear in his voice. No, Daniel said. We want to be the galaxy's warning. Look at what we did to the Zithrani. They were a major power. 12 star systems. 300 warships. And we took them apart in 6 days. Not because we wanted their territory. Not because we wanted their resources. Because they took our children. He let those words hang in the air. The Zithrani thought our love for our children made us weak. They thought it was something they could use against us. They were wrong. Our love for our children is the most dangerous thing about us. It is what makes us fight when any sane species would surrender. It is what makes us keep going when we should give up. Ambassador Vorath of the Kalani stood up. His ancient voice was quiet but carried clearly through the chamber. I wish to speak in support of this proposal. Vorthax seemed surprised. Ambassador Vorath, you have concerns? I have observations. Vorath looked around the chamber with his wise old eyes. I am nearly 1,000 years old. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species conquer the stars and then fade into nothing. In all my years, I have never seen anything like what the humans did. He turned to face Daniel. Most species love their young. It is natural. It is how life continues. But humans do not just love their children. They define themselves by that love. They would destroy themselves to save their offspring. They would burn the galaxy to ash. I watched the recordings of the battle. I saw human ships ramming enemy stations rather than retreat. I saw crews dying with smiles on their faces because they knew they were protecting children they would never meet. Vorath paused. The proposal before us is not about giving humans power. It is about making sure that what happened to New Hope never happens again. Any species, anywhere, should know that if they target children, they will face consequences. Not words. Not meetings. Consequences. And I can think of no species better suited to deliver those consequences than humanity. The vote was called. One by one, species cast their decisions. Some voted yes because they believed in protecting children. Some voted yes because they feared what would happen if they voted no. In the end, the result was unanimous. The first law of the Galactic Council was passed. After the session ended, Daniel stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime. Lisa Monroe stood beside him, watching the stars. "Do you think it will work?" she asked. "The law?" "Yes, I think so. Not because anyone believes in it, but because they are afraid of what will happen if they break it. Is that enough?" Daniel thought about the question. "For now, yes. Maybe someday it will be more than fear. Maybe someday other species will understand why we do what we do. But until then, fear will keep children safe. And that is all that matters." But back on Earth, the 47 children of New Hope were learning to live again. Some had nightmares every night. Some were afraid of the dark. Some had trouble trusting adults. But they were alive, and they were home. And slowly, day by day, they were healing. Amy Garcia returned to teaching. She took a position at a school in California where she could see the ocean from her window. She kept a picture on her desk of Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison and his rescue team. One day, a new student asked about the picture. "Who are those people, Miss Garcia?" Amy looked at the photo. She saw Jake's tired face. She saw the soldiers who had come through the darkness to save them. She saw the faces of heroes. "Those are the people who proved something very important," she said. "They proved that no matter how far you are from home, no matter how scared you are, someone will come for you. They proved that children matter, that all children matter, and that the universe will never forget it." The student nodded, not fully understanding. But Amy knew that someday he would. Someday every child in the galaxy would know the story of New Hope. They would know about the first law. They would know what happened to those who broke it. Supreme Commander Krivex was found guilty of crimes against children. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a human penal colony, where he would spend every remaining day surrounded by the species he had tried to destroy. The Zythrani Dominion was reduced to a single star system. They were forbidden from building warships or weapons. They would never threaten anyone again. And across the galaxy, in nurseries and schools and playgrounds, children of 100 different species lived their lives in safety. They did not know about the law that protected them. They did not know about the human fleet standing ready to respond to any threat. They just knew that they were safe. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it. Years later, the first law was tested 3 more times. Each time, a species thought they could target children without consequence. Each time, the human fleet arrived. Each time, the offending species learned the same lesson as Zythrani had learned. The galaxy remembered Dot and children. Everywhere, were safe, on the wall of the Galactic Council chambers. A new plaque was mounted next to the list of ancient laws. It read, "The first law of the Galactic Council. No species shall deliberately target, harm, or endanger the children of any other species, for any purpose, under any circumstances. Violations will be met with immediate and overwhelming response." Below those words, in smaller letters, was a simple warning. Enforced by Earth. It was all the warning anyone needed.